The storm had raged for 3 days, swallowing every sound, every whisper of life beneath a cruel blanket of white. In the heart of the blizzard, a palace of ice stood proud and merciless, sculpted from frost and sorrow. And within those walls sat a queen whose heart had long forgotten warmth, a queen whose beauty could silence thunder, and whose loneliness could freeze even the bravest soul. They called her the Snow Queen, but long before the world feared her, she had once been a girl who knew how to love. Long ago, before the endless winter, there was a kingdom where spring bloomed endlessly. In that kingdom lived a girl named Elara, a humble village healer's daughter. She was known not for her beauty, though she was fair, but for the warmth of her spirit. Wherever she went, flowers seemed to turn toward her, children smiled brighter, and even the weary found peace in her presence. Her world was simple, yet her heart dreamed big, to bring light to every corner of darkness she could find. But fate has a way of testing even the purest hearts. One winter evening, a mysterious wanderer came to her village, wounded and near death. Elara cared for him day and night, nursing him back to health with herbs and warmth. He said little of himself, but in his eyes she saw a depth she could not explain, eyes like midnight skies after a storm. When he finally left, he gifted her a silver pendant shaped like a snowflake, whispering that it would protect her from harm. Elara didn't know it then, but that gift would change her destiny forever. As months passed, the seasons began to falter. Spring came late, flowers refused to bloom, and the air grew heavy with a chill no fire could drive away. Then, on a night when the moon hid behind clouds, the stranger returned, but this time he was not the same. His eyes glowed like shards of ice, and his voice carried the weight of eternity. He revealed himself as Kael, the keeper of the north wind, cursed to live forever in isolation unless a mortal could love him despite the cold that consumed his soul. The pendant he had given her was a fragment of that curse, meant to protect her should she ever find herself within his frozen world. Elara's heart trembled between fear and compassion. She could feel the frost creeping into the land, spreading from Kael's heart to the kingdom itself. He begged her to flee, to save herself while she still could, but she refused. She believed that if her warmth could heal wounds of flesh, it could also heal the wounds of the heart. So she followed him north, through forests of ice and mountains of snow, until they reached the palace of frost that would later be known as the Ice Kingdom. Inside that palace, Elara found beauty and tragedy intertwined. Walls glittered like diamonds, but every sparkle carried a sorrowful echo. Kael tried to keep his distance, fearing that his curse would harm her, yet the more he pulled away, the more she tried to reach him. Days turned to weeks, weeks to months, and slowly she began to see glimpses of the man behind the ice, his quiet laughter, his longing glances, his pain hidden beneath centuries of solitude. But love is never without cost. The curse that bound Kael was not just his to bear. It was a force of nature, born from the gods' wrath when he had once defied them to save a mortal woman long ago. His heart was frozen not as punishment for betrayal, but for love. To break the spell, someone had to give their warmth, all of it, until the last breath. One morning, Elara woke to find the world outside buried in the deepest snow the kingdom had ever seen. Kael's power was growing unstable. The frost was spreading faster than before, threatening to swallow villages, forests, and life itself. He locked himself away in the throne room, trying to control the storm raging inside him. Elara pounded on the icy doors until her hands bled, begging him to let her in. But his fear of losing her was greater than his fear of dying alone. When at last the doors burst open from the force of the storm, Elara entered the room that blazed with white light. Kael stood at its center, eyes wild with pain. his body surrounded by shards of frozen wind. She could barely see him, but she knew what she had to do. Wrapping her arms around him, she whispered words of love, words so simple and pure that they shattered the silence of centuries. The ice around him cracked, but so did her strength. The warmth from her heart began to pour into him, melting the curse but stealing her life away. The storm outside grew silent. The snow fell gently now, like tears from heaven, and when the last flake touched the earth, Kael's curse was gone, but Elara lay still in his arms, her breath gone. Her warmth faded into him. He cried for the first time in his immortal life, his tears freezing on her skin, creating a single crystal that shone brighter than any jewel in his kingdom. He placed it inside the pendant she once wore and vowed never to let it fall into darkness again. Centuries passed, and the story of the Snow Queen began to twist in the tongues of men. They said she was a cruel ruler, that her heart was made of ice, that she cared for nothing but her frozen palace. But the truth was buried deep beneath the snow. Kael had taken Elara's warmth and her soul, and with it, she had become part of him. Her spirit lingered within the palace walls, keeping the ice clear, the snow pure, and the wind soft. She was the light behind the frost, the whisper in the winter breeze, and the heartbeat within the silence. One day, a young traveler lost in the storm stumbled upon the same palace. It glittered like a dream, and at its gates stood a figure cloaked in white, the Snow Queen. Her eyes, cold yet kind, watched the traveler approach. He fell to his knees, asking for shelter, and she led him inside. As he sat by the frozen fire, he noticed something strange. The air around him grew warmer, softer, as if the frost itself was alive with gentle emotion. The Snow Queen watched the traveler's hands tremble, his lips pale from the cold, and for the first time in ages, she felt her heart stir. She reached for the pendant around her neck, the same one Elara once wore, and held it close. Inside, the crystal glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. In that moment, Kael realized that Elara's love had not vanished. It lived within him, guiding him to offer the same compassion she once gave him. He wrapped the traveler in his cloak and whispered words that melted the air itself. No one should ever be alone in the cold. And so, the legend began anew. The Snow Queen, once feared as the ruler of frost, became a guardian of lost souls. Travelers found warmth in her kingdom, not because the ice melted, but because the cold no longer meant cruelty. It became a place of peace, a reminder that even in the darkest winters, love can still find a way to shine. Years later, people would tell stories of how, on certain nights, the palace of ice would shimmer with a strange light, as if two figures, a woman in blue and a man in white, danced together beneath the stars. Some said it was the spirit of Elara and Kael, eternally bound by love. Others said it was the snow itself, remembering what warmth once felt like. Whatever the truth, those who saw it never forgot the feeling, a strange mix of sorrow, beauty, and hope. Love, after all, does not die. It transforms. It endures through storms, through centuries, through hearts turned to stone. The Snow Queen's love story was not one of perfection or fairy tale endings. It was one of sacrifice, redemption, and the eternal promise that love, once born, never truly fades. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to keep love and kindness alive in every story we tell. Special request to tell us in the comments, what does true love mean to you? And remember, even in the coldest winter, the heart can still remember the warmth of spring.